Normally, when I was asked to speak, I actually didn't want to speak because it's very depressing at times speaking about this case, and we've been speaking about this case non-stop, non-stop, and nothing's happening. But I took it on because I remembered also his Beng Hock's anniversary, his death, and I think some of the discussion about transnational justice is something that is very important, but I won't go into that because I think Gobin Azmi has covered that. I just think it's important for us to recap, and I don't think the Bar Council has ever presented its submissions in public. So I wanted to go through again what happened that day, because the anger that some people were feeling at that time has sort of subsided, and I think anger is a very good emotion, especially when things are very heated in terms of what type of changes we want, in terms of what type of demands we want in the coming elections. I just want to very quickly go through the bar submissions, which was 400 over pages. We took months and months at the Royal Commission. We spent almost 2 weeks locked up in a house just to go through tens and thousands of pages of notes of evidence. We came up, and I led the theory team, we came up with the case theory of what exactly happened that night. And I just want to show you the links. If some of you watch the Faizal Mustafa's play on Beng Hock, you all watch, right? Some of it was dramatized, but most of it was true. At page 325, it starts, page 325 of the 325, that's 321. Yeah. On the 15th of July 2009, at about 9:10 AM, the person in charge of operations is Hishamuddin. Hishamuddin is the one that has been implicated very heavily, but throughout the inquest and throughout the RCR, he completely denied having any part to play in interrogating Beng Hock. He's the one now who has been promoted to in MACC in the He was in charge of the whole operation, and he called a briefing in the morning. And these were the key figures: Hairul, Anwar, Aman, Bukini, Efizo, Hadri, and Zulkifli. If you watch the play, the two main guys are Aman and Anwar. There's another one, Ashraf. So there were three, but at different times. Some of you are nodding head. I'm sure some of you have seen it. Anwar was the IO of the case. What is very important, and the theory we had that day, at that time, was that if you look at the third paragraph on the day, Hishamuddin instructs Bukini, Hadri, and Zulkifli to look for the owner of Merit Link. Hadri is to lead the Merit Link team. Merit Link is the flags issue. If you remember Tan Munwa, the guy who was interrogated for the longest time, our theory is that Beng Hock was kept there because there was a link to the Tan Munwa flags issue. And Tan Munwa also had a link to Beng Hock. I will just explain to that a bit later. Then on the 15th at about 6 PM, Teo Beng Hock arrives at MACC escorted by the Teo Beng Hock team who went to arrest him. And then Hishamuddin, although he denied all this, we established that he continually directed the interrogation from behind. I'm not sure whether he ever went face to face with Beng Hock, but he was the one that he called Hairul and Hadri for briefings. He instructs them from Putrajaya, who have nothing to do with the Selangor case, to come, and he called these two guys called Aman and standby Ashraf. Ashraf had 14 assault cases pending before him, but he called Ashraf from MACC Putrajaya to come to conduct these so-called interviews. And the interviews were the same, what's your name, what is this, same questions over and over again, according to Aman and Ashraf. But we think that, and that went for hours, we think that there was some form of abuse there. So there was carrying out interviews. At the same time, they were interviewing Beng Hock, Aman and Ashraf. That's 8:30 to 9 o'clock. Two other officers, Bukini and Fizo, were interviewing Bunwa over the flags. And then, after that, 9:45 to 10 PM, they bring Bunwa back to his house. From his house, back to MACC Selangor. And then they continually brief Hishamuddin. So the Bunwa team that interrogates Bunwa goes to Hishamuddin. The Aman Ashraf team that continually interrogates Beng Hock also goes to Hishamuddin. So there is clear evidence that Hishamuddin was directing it from behind. And the ICI, despite all his denials, and the ICI said he's a liar, he continued to deny it, but all this evidence came out. And this is, I'm not speaking of by making this up, but this was all from the evidence. Then at 10 p.m, they interviewed Beng Hock, the Bukini interviews Bunwa about the flags. And there was this key guy, a key marker we call Zulkifli. At 10:15, he goes back to MACC Klang to collect his car. And then he lies to say he returns to MACC Selangor only to sleep at the surau. This Zulkifli is a very senior officer at MACC who is a close friend of Hishamuddin. Whatever reason, we don't know, he is from MACC Klang. What was he doing there at night? We don't know. Okay? He says he's doing Hishamuddin a favor. There was an interview that continues with Beng Hock. 12 to 1 a.m, Aman on my cross-examination says, yes, I consider Beng Hock as an accomplice. He says that. So this story about them, Beng Hock only being a witness is not true. Because at that time, the interrogator already said, yes, he's an accomplice. But they never asked him anything about the Bunwa flags. Then, this other team that interrogates Bunwa continues to interrogate Bunwa for 15, 45 minutes. This is where all Bunwa complains, and I think Gopin took up the case, right, for Bunwa. And then Nazri, the recording officer, purportedly takes Beng Hock's statement. This statement at ICI has never been produced. The original Beng Hock statement has never been produced. And we made a big issue of it. Why the original has not been produced, we don't know. We suspect that the signature there was falsified. Then Bukini and Afizol stops interrogating Bunwa. They're very angry with Bunwa, they call him names, they do whatever to him. And then they go and reports back to Hishamuddin. That's 2 a.m, 6 o'clock. Then there's another officer that leaves MACC. Suddenly, this guy, 3:15, this Zulkifli guy who came back from MACC Klang, wakes up and then he goes to a surau on the 13th floor, which we found in the end there was no surau, and changes his pants and stays there. Remember Zulkifli, he's the marker. He's the marker for the IO Anwar. Then they report, Bukini and Offizo continue to report the interrogation session to Hadri. Hishamuddin said, Hadri, he took look after lah. And then, very interestingly, all the officers on cross-examination at RCI at 3:25 a.m. on the 16th of July, MACC officers studiously avoid the top left section of the MACC office where the window Teo Beng Hock allegedly fell from is located. The whole MACC office is like a circle, a square. At before 3 something, all of them walking around, is a free and empty space. But when we ask questions about the 3 o'clock incident, the person's room, although just next to the window, he says he takes a whole round to walk back to his room. All of them avoid that area, every single one. Okay? And then there's this purported recording of Beng Hock's statement, which we say we never found. Anwar is the IO, is sleeping all the time. Okay? He was found sleeping at the surau at 3:30 a.m. And then there's this guy Bukini leaves MACC. This is the mysterious part. From 3:30 to 6 o'clock, there's absolutely no evidence. Every question to the MACC officer, 3:30 to 6 a.m., nobody gives any evidence. They're either sleeping at the surau, or they're sleeping at their table. And I think there was the RCI found that there were people watching porn. Okay, but absolutely no evidence. We do not know what happened, and we suspect this was the period with Beng Hock, when Beng Hock died. Notice this, Ashraf, the guy who had 14 cases against him, leaves MACC only at 5 a.m. So from 3:30 to 6 a.m, we do not know what happened, but the 3 people named at the RCI, Ashraf, Anwar and Hishamuddin, Ashraf leaves at 5 a.m. He only leaves the office at 5 a.m, that makes it. Then, Hishamuddin, who says, I've never been with Beng Hock, I wasn't there, I left. There's another officer we got out of cross-examination, he says, he sees Ashraf, Adri, Nazri, Sachi, Hishamuddin and Anwar walking past his room at that time, 5 to 5:45 a.m. Okay? Then of course there's this lah, Hadri, his room is near the window, he sleeps in another person's room at 5:45 a.m. Okay? You're more comfortable. Okay? Note this, Hishamuddin 6:15 leaves MACC. Means he was at MACC office right up to 6:15. Ashraf leaves at 5. If Ashraf, Anwar and Hishamuddin were involved, then it must have happened before 5. And if Anwar was sleeping in the surau, Anwar had to be sleeping in the surau because he couldn't have an alibi. So Hishamuddin says, no, he was always in the room. Throughout the hours, he was always in the room, but as I showed you, Raymond, his own officer, said, he saw Hishamuddin walk past the room. This is very important. Zulkifli leaves MACC, he goes to MACC Klang to clock out, immediately returns home, he does not return to the office the whole day. He was the one, if you look at the news report, he was the one that broke down, he was the one that said he lied. And he doesn't return to MACC Klang the whole day, it was 7 AM. Why this happened is because there's a whole long story. I just want to go down to this why this happened is because by 12:50 AM, go down. By 12:50, page 332, by 12:50 AM, you read this, Amin, MACC Klang overhears a conversation at MACC Klang that Beng Hock had died. He says that he heard it from an MACC Klang officer who was MACC Slammer on the morning of 16 July 2009 and returned to MACC Klang that morning. Zulkifli is the only MACC Klang officer who fits that bill. Means, by that morning, when Zulkifli went back to MACC Klang to clock out and never returned, by 7 AM, he already knew that Beng Hock died. He is the link. That's why we had to keep quiet when we rendered this because we were waiting for the RCI report. Now the RCI report is out and some of us are quite disappointed in it. I don't mind talking about it. But basically this theory was never ever explored by the RCI. And this theory is the theory we think that fits most closely to what happened, or at least who knew about it. And the person who actually knew about it was Zulkifli. Zulkifli knew about it, that's one importance. The second importance is that so definitely driven suicide is something that we cannot accept. I don't think the family can accept. I don't think anybody can accept that. And it passed the good name on the Royal Commission. Because when we were calling, if you cast your mind back, when we were calling for the Royal Commissions to be set up, and they didn't want to set it up, they had the inquest, they did the merry-go-round. I was saying, and I say I'm now wrong, that all the Royal Commissions, if you look back in Malaysia, there's not one except for this one that has come up with a verdict that's so unreasonable. If you look at the Anwar Black Eye incident, you look at the VK Lingam one, remember? You look at the squad, the new squad one, the police one. A lot of this, all this, the Bar Council made representations. We were there, they accepted a lot of what we said because we were arguing very reasonably. This for the first time, and I would say James Wong, Savintri Nadan, Kadir Sulaiman, and the doctors and Bhupinder, they're just it's a shame. It's a real shame because at the Royal Commission they were actually grilling the MACC officers. I do not know how suddenly they could have come to a compromised position. It's a compromised position. Clearly, and the way it's written, it was written so loosely, if you do that report, that it wouldn't stand any water in court. Or is it because of this driven suicide? When the evidence and our submission in 300 over pages is so clear that he's not the type who will commit suicide. On the other hand, there are people who were interrogating him that were had reports pending on the spot. But the final word is we do not know. And the Royal Commission's findings are so flawed that I will not rely on it. And that's why I didn't show you the Royal Commission's report. I showed you our recommendations. And that's why I say we need to remember Beng Hock this way. A Beng Hock Foundation would be a good way to look and start legal reform changes and really give hope to the people, not just rhetoric about changing the system. And I'm not saying, let the politicians do that, it's okay, no go. Okay? But if you look at the real legal change, real transnational justice, setting up law commissions of reconciliation, we need to start thinking about it now. And if you want to put it on the agenda for politics, go ahead. We are prepared at the center to actually give that kind of support. Because the system is already messed up. The constitution, with the way the system is messed up.